And we're live. Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, depending on when you watch our episode. This is Marion Spears Carr, and this is the Healthcare Leadership Show with Marion Spears Carr at a unique time later in the afternoon than normal, but just excited to be here. If you're watching live, please let us know in the comments. And if you have questions, one of the things I love about my show is it's highly interactive. We want the people watching to fully engage with what we're doing. So please let us know in the comments. In today's topic, in today's discussion is around advancing patient quality and safety, a scalable framework for transformation. And it's the book that you're seeing on the screen right now. And my guest is its author, Dr. Anti Nguyen. Dr. Nguyen, we've been having so much fun preparing for our discussion and laughing so much. And please introduce yourself and let the people know. Give them a little background, and we'll jump right into the conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Nguyen.
No, thank you so much, Marion, for having me here today. I'm truly honored to be here and to have a conversation about the quality safety book as well as the work on transformation. As you know, the book is the result of many years of hands-on experience, reflection, and collaboration with some amazing people out there. And the book's also is very deeply personal and professionally important to me. So I'm really happy to share what I've learned, but also the importance of continuing to learn from our colleagues out there that who live in this space day to day doing this work.
Yeah, no, I was so excited to get you on the show, and you were kind enough to send me a copy of the book, and I got to read it and got so excited. For those of you who are seeing the Healthcare Leadership Show for the very first time, this is my semi-weekly LinkedIn Live show where I interview people in my network and share them with my network, and a lot of the people that come on my show are people that are making huge differences in the marketplace, healthcare marketplace. For those of you who don't know about my background, I run an executive search and leadership solutions firm called Inflow Executives, my third iteration of startups. And I'm embedded in my brain in the psychology of leadership and other things. Dr. Nguyen and I've laughed so much about that. And a lot of people are checking in. So, and thank you for being live in the comments, because this is what we love about the show. Genia is checking in, watching live. Vaso, who is the one that introduced me to you, Dr. Nguyen. Vaso, thanks for checking in from Winston-Salem. Joan is checking in from Lynchburg, Virginia. Also, Megan's checking in from Lynchburg. Christina, Suffolk, Virginia, great Virginia connection. Richmond, also Nina's checking in. We got a great contingency out of Virginia. And let's see who else. And people are saying hello to everybody. Joan's saying hello to everybody. So if you're watching live, let us know in the comments. And if you have questions for Dr. Nguyen, please do. Dr. Nguyen, you and I talked about your book, and here's my copy of the book. And there was three things that really stood out to me about it. And you and I had this conversation the other day. And the first thing is, when you read the book, the thing that really struck me is how quickly you share an actionable action that people reading the book, advancing patient quality and safety, the scalable framework, can put to work. It's, you and I have talked that a lot of books that we read are great books around leadership or quality or whatever it might be, but it talks about the problem, and it doesn't have a call to action. And the first thing that struck me about your book is it has a call to action. Can you give me a little bit of insight of like what inspired you to put a book together that really calls people to do something about it?
Yeah. No, thank you, Marion. There's a few things behind that question. I know we've talked about this before, but the one of the things that there's a huge urgency for transformation in healthcare, And given the fact that we're in the wake of the pandemic, for me, really exposed a lot of the deep systemic vulnerabilities. And
Hmm.
for my journey from clinical practice to system level leadership, it gave me a front row seat of really appreciating the challenges as well as the possibilities. And it really compelled me to capture what I've learned over many years, to be able
Hmm.
to create something that's real, something that's actionable, and something that's practical and not theoretical. So the book is
Hmm.
my way of helping my colleagues to navigate the complexity with clarity and purpose. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of textbooks out there. And a lot of these textbooks are very academic types of texts,
Hmm.
very dense. And within the healthcare industry, our colleagues, including myself and yourself, we're so inundated with information, and time becomes such a valuable asset. So our goal here with this book was to create something that's concise, something
Hmm.
that's actionable, that people can, like you mentioned,
Yep.
respecting the reader's time while still delivering high impact insights. And that was the goal of the book, to really be able to allow people to read it quickly and to use it right away in their line of work.
Yeah, that struck me as such a key piece of the book. And you and I talked about the fact that the amount of work that you had to put into making a book. And by the way, if you've not read the book, please pick it up on Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books, because you need to read it. If you're watching the show and you haven't read it, please do. And I'll put a link in the comments after the show where they can pick up a copy. But the book gets to the point and to the heart of what you're trying to achieve immediately. And again, it walks us through that. And when I get in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit more about the particulars. But one of the things you and I laugh so much about is the fact that the book is small. Like it
Mhm.
was a lot of work to get all the information that's in your head, all the things you've observed, all the research you've done, all the life experiences you've had as a leader, both as a clinical leader in your physician background, but also as a physician leader. And you've gone on to get your MBA, you've gone on to scale your skill set dramatically. What was that process like of
Mhm.
like getting that all this information that you could have shared down into that size of a volume?
No, thank you, Marion. Thank you, Marion. It's, the brevity was intentional. And we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this prior, this is based on many years of doing this work in this space. And I had I think I shared with you, the first manuscript was super long, right? It had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
information, but no insights. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
information, no insights. And, it's also the other thing that been asked of me is that, how come there aren't a lot of stories in the book? There's a few. And to me,
Yeah.
stories and narratives are powerful, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they tend to anchor specific ideas too tightly to specific contexts. So the other thing that we were deliberate is in terms of prioritizing clarity over narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason
Mm-hmm.
for that is to ensure that the framework and the contents of the book are universally applicable. Because we want people to use the framework to expand upon at their organization. And we want the people to use the framework as a lens to analyze their organization and be able to come up with context-specific solutions. And the story I think I share with you is that condensing the book from a large volume to something less than 100 pages was key when one of the recommendation or the stories that was provided to me was that when the publisher asked Mark Twain to write a two-page story in
Mm-hmm.
2 days, he responded by saying that, hey, I can write you a 30-page story in 2 days. I'm going to need 30 days to write a two-page story. So to me,
Yeah.
that was a light bulb moment for me in terms of you got to be able to have clarity, be concise in order to be compelling.
Yeah, you and I had so much fun talking about that quote, and because for those of you who don't know me or the work that I do, I'm also working on a book right now, and I'm struggling with the fact that I have a story for every story, and I have way too many stories. And I love the idea. You've taught me a lot about in terms of the framework structure. Is great. Mark's checking in from San Francisco. Thank you. And if you're watching live, please let us know in the comments, or even if you watch the recording, let us know in the comments, because what's so important is we want to know who we're connecting with. We want to know who we're reaching and who is connecting with Dr. Wynn's book. And so let's jump in there. Tell me about this idea around the framework. What are the differentiators that say this is the process? And you don't have to go into all the detail, but give us a taste of what that looks like. Because let's face it, there's thousands of people out there trying to do quality work and improvement on the safety and of patients and the responsive rate for care delivery, and you name the list, right? The triple aim has become the quadruple aim, and now it's, I don't know how many aims there is, but talk about the framework in terms of the context of how it's actionable and what is at the center of it.
No, thanks, Mary. That's such a great question, and that was a question I had to answer for myself when I started down this journey for this book. Because two things for me, I'll be transparent. One was who's the audience of the book, and then how is this book going to contribute to the literature, and why is it different? And I can share is that working in this space for so many years, there are a lot of models and frameworks out there that address quality and safety. But what I've noticed is, I don't think my opinion is unique, is that a lot of those models are very much focused on compliance. Like when you have something that comes down from the Joint Commission, something comes from Medicare or the federal government, it becomes more like a compliance exercise for those frameworks. In addition to that, there a lot of times they're very much checkbook driven type of change. So the framework that I have offered is different in several ways. One is that it's scalable, meaning that it can be implemented across the healthcare ecosystem. It doesn't have to be in acute care. It can be in the ambulatory space. Number two, it's grounded in real world application. It's been performed, it's been executed, so it's reproducible. But I think the most important part of the framework is that it's focused on the human experience. It goes beyond the strategic thinking. It goes beyond the tactics. It focuses on the human component, the mindset shift, the culture, and the engage or commitment in order to do this type of work. And that's how the framework's different from what's out there.
Yeah, and in chapter 3, it struck me that you've written a whole chapter on how do we identify who the customer is and why we serve them. And people may think in healthcare, well, of course we know who our customers are. We're a hospital, or we're a physician practice, or we're a medical clinic. But oftentimes the mission of the organization, even though it's focused on serving that community, often do not know as much about the community as they would like to think they do. Talk a little bit about, as practitioners in the space of quality and care delivery and safety, why is it so important to really understand what the needs of the community are and the people we serve? That chapter really stuck out to me, because this idea of why does this matter, what we're doing? And we assume that we think it's matter because we're improving their quality of life, or how long they live, but there's so much more to it. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Definitely. That chapter was my way of offer some reflection on equity and equality in terms of how we go about identify the right population to serve. And when I was writing that part to really share those principles, some of the feedback that I received was that, hey, might not be a good time based on the environment to be talking about DEI and those critical components of healthcare. And my response to that is equity and equality are human issues, because we want everyone to have the best respectful healthcare despite,
Mhm.
regardless of what their demographics or their backgrounds are. We want people to receive the best care. And that's my
Mhm.
way of sharing that. We need to identify the population or that we're caring for, because healthcare quality is not really quality if ethics are not being served, equity is not being addressed. Um, that's to me is a failure on our part if we omit those components when we really look at who we care for.
Yeah, and that struck home with me. And for those, again, a lot of new people are watching the show. And by the way, if you just joined us, this is the Healthcare Leadership Show with Marion Spears Carr. That's me. This is, I think, Dr. Wynn, I think you're episode 135. I quit counting at about 60. It's not really a podcast. It's a LinkedIn live show. And it was all born out of this idea of like, all these great people are in my network. Other people need to know about them. And that's how this whole thing started. And it's the work that I do. But for those of you who don't recognize the accent, I'm from the Piedmont area of North Carolina with my roots buried deep into the Appalachian region of the country. And I live in the Appalachian region of North Georgia. So you and I talked about this, Dr. Wynn. When we think about equitable care and think about populations, I mean, there's so much to be done. We talk about SDOH and all of those different things, but just health literacy, for example, is such a challenge. And as part of our work is people that are caring for these people, we need to make sure that they understand the kind of care they're getting and understand what it means to get through the health system, et cetera. I talked about that. So I love that human component. You and I also talked about technology, and we can't have this conversation without talking about AI. Let's face it, AI's here one way or the other. And it's driving a lot of work in different areas, particularly revenue cycle and those things that I talked about. But you talked about the fact that AI is a tool, and all the other technologies is a tool, and you connect it back to what are we trying to do from a humanistic perspective and dealing with human. Talk a little bit about your insights on how you see technology in this whole process of improving patient safety, quality of care, et cetera. I really enjoyed your take on it, and I think the audience would as well.
No, thank you, Mary. I think that goes back to my definition of transformation. Because at the end of the day, for me, is transformation isn't just change. It's a deep, sustained, system-level evolution, which forces us to rethink how we deliver care, how we lead, and also how we measure success. Because transformation to me is also both technical and adaptive, and the reason for that is that we're always going to need data, we're always going to need technology, process, and systems, but we also will need the human component of that equation, which is your shifting your mindset, your culture, your leadership behaviors. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be how we align people, process, and performance. And if those three elements are in sync, anything is possible. And that's where transformation begins. And that's why it's so important for us to think that transformation is going to be a new toy, a new tool, a new technology going to get us there. We really have to bring ourselves back to our people and the purpose, a shared commitment in order to accelerate transformation.
For clinicians that are in the field, physicians, APPs, everyone really, the nursing, everybody that's interacting with the patient, what are some of the things that you've seen from a tools and technology perspective that actually have made things better for them? Any thoughts on that? And I guess maybe what are some of the boundaries we need to put up to not lean in too heavy on the technology necessary? So I guess that's two questions. I told you I told you my questions were going to be off the wall there, Dr. Wynn. But what talk a little bit about that around some of the things that has happened in the technology space that has made things better for the clinicians and providers, but also kind of where are the boundaries that we need to set to make sure that we're staying connected with the patient, et cetera.
Yeah. I think I'll give you two thoughts on that. Coming from a surgical background, we always have ways to improve the way we do procedures. Throughout my career, we've done better with laparoscopic procedures, with robotics procedures, and from vascular surgery standpoint, we changed from open procedure to endovascular procedures. All those things shorten the recovery period and help people recover quicker and go back to their family settings in a shorter time. But from the other component where it's more important these days around value-based care is, for example, the documentation of the patient's acuity and profile. For us, from value-based care perspective, we want to make sure that we capture the full profile of the people that we care for. And that goes back to your point about demographics, but also including clinical data. So that way we know what the patients need, but also how sick or healthy they are. And that's how it drives our care, because we can be more personalized based on the clinical profile and bring the right solutions to the table. So with technology these days, we have technology to help our providers, our nurses, physicians to document in a way that helps with that, but also allow us to be able to prepare and allocate our resources, again, based on the acuity of the patients. So all these things tie together in terms of quality and safety and value-based care. And I think it's important that we continue to advance those components that's going to help us get where we need to be.
But and great answer, and I really love the fact that you're focusing on again, being redundant here, but that humanistic side of it, that connection to the patient, to the person, to the individual, et cetera. For those of you who may have just joined us or joined late for the show, we're talking with my guest, Dr. Anton Nguyen, who is a chief medical officer, chief quality officer, surgeon, and his book, Advancing Patient Quality and Safety, a Scalable Framework for Transformation. Got the pleasure of reading that book. I shared earlier in the show that I read a lot of books and I don't finish most of them because about 3/4 of the way through, okay, I've heard all the stories. I've heard them all. Tell me what to do. And for those of you who are watching live or watching the replay, here's how small the book is. Like, you can read this on a weekend, but what's even better about it is there's note pages where you can take notes, and there's field notes that gives you prompts of stuff that you can do. And I love that. So I want to double down on that, Dr. Nguyen. What is one thing, this call to action in your book, that just stands out that people like, oh, I didn't think about that, or, oh, that's a really good idea and I can put that into practice? Give us a sample of something that you can think of in the book. There's like, here's a call of action. Here's something you can do. Here's something you can put into practice right now.
Yeah, thank you for that call out, Marian, in terms of the notes pages and the all the things that we kind of summarize at the end of each chapter to consolidate the information in a way that's easy to execute. But for me, is when you read a book, at the end of the book, it's there's three key takeaways I love people to reflect upon. One is that people are the engine. People are the engine, because empowered teams will drive your continuous improvement, not the mandates, not policies from senior management team state, but people are the engine. Number two is that transformation is possible. It's hard work, but it's doable. As long as you have the right mindset, the right people, the right culture, you can drive transformation across the healthcare ecosystem. And the lastly is, which I find super important, is that culture is a multiplier. I would say, again, culture is a multiplier, because share commitment to excellence will accelerate everything that we do.
I love that a lot. And by the way, again, and I made a call out a couple times to people watching, but if you have a question for Dr. Nguyen, now's the time. Post it in the comments. We want to interact with you. Not that I don't have, believe me, I got 100 questions to every answer. So I've made my living on asking questions. So, but love to hear from the audience as well. Dr. Nguyen, one of the things that I'm involved with is working with leadership teams on how they communicate. I've created a program that we're doing a big research project on at Baylor Scott and White out in Texas, teaching leaders, both clinical leaders and non-clinical leaders, how to use gratitude expression to improve interaction and connection. And one of the things that has struck me about you and about the book, but about really your work is you're very intentional with how you communicate, with how you talk, with how you focus in on solving the problem, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about kind of in your background, kind of what led you in that direction to be. You're very my observation, and we've only talked a few times related to the book and related to coming on the show, et cetera. But I pick up on the fact that you're rather intentional about how you go about your communication and you listen great deal. What shaped that for you as a physician, as a physician leader? I'm just curious about that.
No, thanks for having. Again, my background is surgery. I think I'm from the generation where, as going through surgical training, when you open your mouth on rounds, you got to make sure you have something really compelling to share, and you have to be really intentional in your communication because things happen so quickly. But to me, just having been able to be in leadership position for so many years and going through things like the COVID pandemic and going through things like recently with the one big beautiful bill, all these things are changes, right? Changes to how we operate, how we take care of patients. So to me is that, change, when these things occur, change to me is very emotional. And in order to be able to support and continue to focus on our purpose, you have to be able, number one, be able to listen to your colleagues, listen to your teammates. But what I meant listen is listen to understand, not listen to come up with responses. That's very important. Number two is be able to be transparent about the challenges, right? You have to be transparent. People are smart, they're intelligent, they know what's going on. You have to be transparent about the challenges, and most importantly, be able to bring the right people to the table, be able to co-design and co-create solutions with the people who live in that space day in, day out. It's a very simple formula because it's at the end of the day, people, when change occurs, most people in my experience, they know that the change is needed, the rationale is there. But again, there's the inertia, there's a mental inertia. So you have to give people space. You have to give people time. You have to be able to support people and be able to communicate that purpose in order to get people to move forward. So to me, it's we're working with people, we're working with humans, there are humans' tendencies. You can't take shortcuts because you have to go through the process to be able to support the people that you work with, and in order to, at the end of the day, to optimize what's important, which is the patient that we care for.
And then, the next question, Mark, thank you for the question. And I think this is a really important one. Mark asked, any suggestions on how to increase the human aspect of telehealth? Because you mentioned the pandemic where all of a sudden now we're separated from our patients, even in cases where we're in the same room with them. And telehealth has really started taking hold on a lot of fronts. Great question, Mark. What are your thoughts on how can we improve that human component of the telehealth experience?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. Thank you, Mark. I just remember recalling my time during the pandemic. We hit the peak of telehealth in around the August, September, October timeframe of 2020, and it was out of necessity, right? It was out of necessity to make sure that we continue to care for patients. So we kind of we skipped a lot of steps. We took a lot of shortcuts to turn the telehealth online with the right intention, right? To make sure that our patients are cared for. But as we learned along the way, like to Mark's question, is that we how do we make that more human, more acceptable? So for me, this is one thing I learned is that a lot of times shortcuts can give the illusions of progress at the expense of process integrity. So to me, and a lot of leaders I've worked with, they know that very well. They know that excellence is learned during the journey of any new process, and they do the right things over and over again consistently. So for me, going back to that question, is that
Hmm.
now, now that we have time and we know that telehealth is here to stay, I think
Hmm.
it's important that we really focus on, number one, the people that we care for. Are they the 20, 30-year-old who are native uh, users of computers, or are we dealing with
Yeah.
a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old patient, Medicare patients? So we have to identify what the needs are and be able to address those issues in a personalized way. And I think that's how we at least move the dial in making this more human going forward.
Great answer. And we got one more question. We have time for one more question. So thank you. And Jeannie, if I am mispronouncing your name, Jeannie, I apologize. Please send me a message on LinkedIn and let me know the appropriate way to pronounce her name. But she said, with so many competing priorities that impact quality and patient safety, and there are thousands, of not hundreds of thousands, do you suggest a risk analysis approach to prioritizing actions? Like, what is that process? What does that analysis look like?
Yeah.
And thank you for that question. It was an outstanding question. It was something we should have talked about.
No, thank you, Gene. And this goes back to, the way I see this question is that, are we solving the right problem? Right?
Yep.
You have to identify your situations at your own institutions, your organizations. And
Hmm.
that's where I made a statement about using the framework as a lens to analyze your organizations with context-specific solutions. There are so many things that we can fix, but to me, when I look at the list of things I want to prioritize, I would
Hmm.
usually prioritize on impact and urgency. I want to make sure focus on the things that has the biggest impact on the patient that we care for, and how quickly do we
Hmm.
have to move to make that happen. So definitely, there aren't enough resources or people in any organization I've seen to be able to address 20 things or 50 things at one time. It's just not possible. So you have to prioritize. And one thing I've
Hmm.
learned, growing up doing problem solving and do this type of work is that when you ask someone to do three things, they do three things well. When you ask somebody to do five things, they do two things well. And when you ask somebody to do more than five things, seven things or beyond, they do
Yep.
zero things well. So we always have to prioritize based on impact and urgency.
I love that. And what a great question. And we are out of time for those of you who are watching. And I told you it'd go by fast, Dr. Wynn.
That's
I
right.
told you it just goes by so fast. For those of you who are watching for the first time, this is the Healthcare Leadership Show with Marion Spears Carr, my bi-weekly show where I introduce really great people in my network on a lot of different topics. We've got one coming up on December 2nd, where we're going to be going deeper on AI with a gentleman, a physician out of Texas who's a guru in the space. But Dr. Wynn, thank you. I have posted your LinkedIn link in the comments. How else can people connect with you, to potentially work with you or talk to you about the consulting work that you do and your book, or any other way they can connect with you, or options to how to reach out?
Sure. Thanks, Mary. Happy to share my cell phone number. Happy to share my various emails. And please reach out. It's to me is if you get a chance to read a book, I really love to hear what resonates with you. This is how we get better as a team. This is how we move forward. So please reach out to me through my email or my cell phone.
Awesome. And we'll connect with Dr. Wynn on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with me, send me a connect request, because I want you in my circle. I want you in my network. I want you as part of the work that we're doing. Mark, thank you for your gratitude. Megan, Joan, Genia, Vaso, everyone else that were in the audience. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people. Share this with your network, because it'll be recorded. They can come back to this event and watch the interview. I'm going to have you back on, and I'm doing a series. You and I've talked about. I'm going to be doing a series of roundtables with physician leaders in 2026. So you'll be back on. We're getting claps. Thank you. And by the way, Gina, you're the first person that have used clap emojis on my show. So thank you. I love it. I love it. So thank you for the applause. Everyone have a great day. I'm Marion Spears Carr, and on behalf of Dr. Wynn and the Healthcare Leadership Show with Marion Carr, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.